Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi Sai. This is Menachem Nissel in Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh. So tonight we have a very special share because of the Yom Tov that is upon us. Today is Rosh Chodesh, Rosh Chodesh Sivan, Vayichan Sham Yisrael, Neged Hahar Ki Ish Echad B'Lev Echad. As my Rabbi Moshe Shapiro would always say, Ki Ish Echad B'Lev Echad. That Ish is Adam Arishain Lifnei Achet. Klal Yisrael reached a madrega beyond comprehension after all those days of work, sphera after sphera, day after day, from Yetzias Mitzrayim until that moment when they arrived in front of the Har, and then continued from Rosh Chodesh Sivan when they arrived at Har Sinai, the Yemei Hachana, the days of preparation. The climax with the Shleishis Yemei Hagmala. Ilu Kirivana Lifnei Har Sinai. We say on Seder night, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu would have just brought us in front of Har Sinai, Dayenu, because of the Giluyim that we received from the Hachana itself, without the action of Aseres HaDibros, was so lofty and so exalted that we tasted once again Gan Eden. I always like to point out that our beautiful minhag of having flowers and plants in our homes and our shuls on Yom Tov, this is where it comes from. It comes from this Gan Eden experience. The florist was not into flora. The florist was Gan Eden itself. So we are learning together, you and I, we have been learning together for the last few years, Meseches Shabbos. And it's interesting to notice that the parak that deals with the Agadata of Har Sinai is the parak, the 9th parak in Masechah Shabbos. The parak is called Amar Rabbi Akiva, and over there there's a Mishnah that on Daf Pei Vav that brings in 4 dafim: Daf Pei Vav, Pei Zayin, Pei Ches, and Pei Tes, the most famous Agadatas connected to Har Sinai. Children know these already, and that is where you find the heart of Har Sinai in terms of Talmudic expression. Is found in those dafim, and right there, the most amongst the many, many famous ones, you have a machlokas that everyone knows. When exactly was the date that the Torah was given? Tana Rabbanan b'shishi b'chodesh nitnu aseres hadibros to Yisrael. We all know this, that the Chachamim hold that the Torah was given on the 6th day, and Rabbi Yosi Aima b'shivaroi. Rabbi Yosi says it was given on the 7th day. So here we have a machlekes that takes up a huge percentage of these 4 blot, is discussion when exactly was the Torah given. As my Rabbi Moshe would always say, Har Sinai, we don't know where it is, and the date, we don't know when it is. So Torah, by definition, does not belong to this world. It is outside the realm of this world. B'li zman, b'li makom. It is in the midbar. It is something that is Torah min hashemayim, as the Rambam says in his Ikrim. So here we have it. The machlokes is between Rabbi Yosi and the Chachamim. It's one of those things that you could ask, well, one of them has to be right. And and the Maral would always say, which one was the actual physical one that happened, and which one is the Bechina, the actual Oimek, the Etzem Hadava of what happened. So be that as it may, this is the machlokes between Rabbi Yosi and the Chachamim that is central to understanding when what happened at Har Sinai is when it happened. And the Gemara goes on to say a statement of Rava, Amar Rava, the Kula Alma B'Rosh Chodesh Asal Lamid Sinai. Everyone agrees with certain facts. There's certain givens in this machlokes. They all agreed that they Vayichan Sham Yisrael Neged Hahar. They arrived at Midbar Sinai. That was on Rosh Chodesh. It was a that was when they arrived, and the Kula Alma b'Shabbos Nitna Torah Yisrael. Here's another given. Everyone agrees that the Torah was given on Shabbos. So I just wanted to point out to you that that we've said this many times. The Gra points out that the Agadata in each Masechta is the heart of the Masechta. In other words, it's the Masechta's neshama, it's the Masechta al Pisoid. So it's not by chance that the Churban is found in Gittin, because that's the Churban is the get between Klal Yisrael and the Kodesh Baruch Hu, or that Eretz Yisrael is found in Ksuvas, because Eretz Yisrael is the Ksuva that we got at Har Sinai. And so if you want to know the neshama of Har Sinai, the answer is Shabbos Kodesh. It's found, or if you want to say the other way around, the neshama of Shabbos Kodesh is found at Har Sinai. At other moments, we also mentioned the Gadata of Hanukkah. So it's interesting that there is a deep connection between Hanukkah and Shabbos, which is not our sugya today. But the Etzem, Rabbah comes along and says that Shabbos was when Har Sinai was given. That's not a machlokes. That, so to speak, has to be. All the holy Sfarim just speak about it. There's nothing controversial about this at all. All the Sfarim say it in their own sprach. Torah belongs to Shabbos. Shabbos belongs to Torah. The two of them are yin and yang. The two of them are two halves of the whole. Has to be that an event like Matan Torah must have been given on Shabbos itself. So this is something that I'm going to give my own 2 cents at the very end of the share, a new twist on the connection between Shabbos Kodesh and Har Sinai, something that the Sfarim that I know do not talk about, but I want to add my own aimek, besides the obvious that that Shabbos is let me just say the obvious. We've said this many times, because at the end of our share we always learn some Agadata. So very frequently we point out there are 3 Shabbosim in history. They're all interconnected. They correspond to the 3 meals. Friday night is the Shabbos of Bereshis. Shabbos lunch is the Shabbos of Har Sinai, and Shal Shudas is the Shabbos of La'asid Lavoi. Whenever I work in Kiruv, I just work with people that need Kiruv. I always talk about the 3 things of Judaism that are the fundamentals of which everything revolves around. Number 1 is proof of God. That corresponds to Hashem's name in the Shema. The second is Har Sinai, which is when HaKadosh Baruch Hu, once he believed that God exists, once he believed that there's an Eibishter out there, there's a creator. So you want to know, what did he want from us? What's it all about? So that's Shabbos of Har Sinai. And then afterwards, the third part is a Har Sinai, what was revealed to us. And that is that the Shabbos of Har Sinai takes us to the Shabbos of the end of days, where all the Gilui of Hashem's Ratzon comes out. And that is where Rabbinic Judaism comes in, because it's the rabbis that help us connect Shabbos of Har Sinai to Shabbos of the La'asid Lavoi. And those 3 Shabbosim are those called Shabbosim of the Tachlis, Seif Maseh, Masiv Machshav Tchila. Everything begins at Bereshis, then everyone is revealed at Har Sinai, and everything is taken to the world of Shabbos La'asid Lavoi. That is not today's discussion, but that is something that is sort of assumed in all the Hasidic Sfarim, that you know and understand that when Rabbi Yossi says, when the Gemara says, when Rabbah says, that everyone agrees, both Rabbi Yossi and the Chacham, everyone agrees that Shabbos and Har Sinai must go together. It's not just a note on the calendar, it's the Eimek of what Shabbos is, and the Eimek of what Torah is that they're Be'etzem one and the same. It's all about the Tachlis, the Tzeinai, of the Kodesh Baruch Hu in creating the world. I want to give a new dimension in today's share by developing the next part of the share, which is to see the sugya on Daf Pei Zayin Amud Aleph. So before I begin, it's interesting. It's very, very interesting, in fact, because it's also revealing why is the Sechah Shabbos hosting Har Sinai? Why is it hosting the sugyas of Har Sinai? It comes in the most bizarre way. I'm hoping that you have your Gemara in front of you. The Gemara is found in the Mishnah and Daf Pei Vav Amud Aleph, where we talk about something that is clearly very, very, very tangential. The Mishnah wants to know, why is this Mishnah also Masechah Shabbos we're not going to talk about that now. There's a whole bunch of mishnayos to begin with the word minayin. The reason why it begins with the word minayin, because the end of the 8th parak, there's a minayin which connects to the opening mishnah of the 9th parak. That's minayin. They're both based on Sukkim Yeshayahu. It really is not a point at all, but this is what's called the minayin mishnayos in Masechah Shabbos. And there, one of the minayins is, in Masechah Shabbos, is minayin lepiletes shichva zera b'yom hashlishi shehi tamea. Why is it that a woman who is piletes shichva zera, she is, this is what happened to her. She had relations with her husband, and her husband placed inside of her zera. This zera has a theoretical possibility, if it's niklat inside the woman properly, that's how, as we would say in biology class, that's how babies are born. But this zera, without a proper klita, becomes zera on its own, is tumah, right? And this is the general rule in all our tumas. All tumah is life that never was materialized. In other words, ultimately, it's tumas mace. In other words, life that became death, or that are connected in some way to the world of death, and that is the world of the Balkari. The Balkari emitted the zera, which is the source of life, and it was not used properly, so therefore it turns into a tumah. Similarly, a woman that receives the zera from the male, and then she emits it, she's piletes it, she emits it, that zera that comes out of it is tameh. That is the rule of the Mishnah that the Mishnah is expounding on, when the Mishnah says you should know that that zera that comes out of the woman is only tameh, only makes her tameh, and the zera itself is only tameh for 3 days. After 3 days, it's considered dead. It's considered nothing. It has no power whatsoever. And Rashi explains right there in the Mishnah, because zera has to be zera that has the theoretical possibility that there still could be the potential of creating life, and that life is lost. So then it becomes tameh. But when there's no potential whatsoever, which means after 3 days inside the mother, at that point then it no longer has the din of zera, it's some nothing, and therefore it's not mitameh. So again, our Mishnah, just to give you, for those of you that are joining us, we're learning the Mishnah that introduces the Agadata of Shabbos, and it's a bizarre opening to a sugya. It seems like, whoa, what's going on? You want to show how bizarre the world of Talmud is, asking, where would you guess that Masechah Shabbos starts to talk about Har Sinai under what topic? No one would ever come up with the Isha is piletes shichva zera for 3 days, and after that, it is no longer mitame. It's no longer mitame her. It's no longer mitame others. It's just for the technical record that the tumah is basically the female equivalent of what for a man is a balkari. So for us men, keri makes us tame, that we cannot study Torah, as you all know, or the Takanas of Ezra, and the halacha would be that we can't touch kachim and truma, and we have to go to the mikvah, and then after the mikvah we have to wait till Har Shemesh, and then we're good to go. For the woman, it's the same thing. So this halacha in ancient times would be very relevant, because every time a woman's with her husband, if she works in a bakery, so I don't know what it's going to be like when Mashiach comes. It's going to be awkward. But then I think I mentioned this in the Mishpacha article in the beginning of Corona. Remember those days? This Corona has sensitized us to this whole idea of thinking all the time who you can be near and what you can touch, and so on and so forth. Bottom line is that a woman was not allowed to be a person, a woman was not allowed to be tamea of keri. She wasn't allowed to be tamea connected to keri at Har Sinai. How do we know that? Because the Mishnah says, "V'yu nechenim l'yayim hashlishi l'shleshis yamim." Excuse me, nechenim l'yayim l'shleshis yamim. Hold on 1 second. 1 second, please. Folks, be Masnisim menai lepaleta ship chazera b'yom hashlishi tmea shenema hayu nechanim l'shloishes yamim. That's a hayu nechanim l'shloishes yamim. So 3 days is where there has to be a hagbala, and those 3 days is where the zera that comes out of her can theoretically still give birth, create life, and therefore, since it's not going to give birth, therefore it is now a source of tumah, and that tumah is a contradiction to the woman being in Har Sinai. That is what Hashem is revealing to Moshe Rabbeinu. Very, very fascinating thesis on the side. If you have Pei Vav and Aleph open, which I now do, so you look at the top thesis, it's a iconic thesis that says the following. It says that Har Sinai, Kodesh Baruch Hu was only nervous about Keri, but what about the other tumas? What happens if a woman was a good old-fashioned nida, or a man was a baal nida, or a man was a zav, or saras, technically speaking, without the narrative that said everyone was healed? All these things was not something that we cared about at Har Sinai. In the words of Tosfos over there in Pei Vav, he says, and I quote, let me just read this to you inside and not try and pretend I can see without my glasses. He says over here, Mikan Amar Zovim Mitzrayim Abali Nidus Mutarim the Chris B'Torah B'Navim B'Lishas B'Mishnah. We're not worried about them reading from the Torah and from Navi and to study Mishnah or B'Shas or Balachos B'Agoras Balkern Asurim perish. The Balkeri Eina Be'ema or Be'yira the Machmas Kalas Reishuba says that what is unique about Keri is that Keri is associated with Kalas Reish. That's the whole relationship between husband and wife, which is the Kalas Reish of Kedusha. Your husband and wife creating a child, it's noble, but it still has to involve a certain level of Kalas Reish. And that is a stira to the Seres HaDibros, to Maimed Har Sinai, but everything else we're not worried about. The Tosfos says it's not for Keri, so the Keri of the male, and the Keri of the female is 3 days. The Keri of the male is maximum a day, but the Keri of the female. So once again, for those of you that are joining us, Rav Nati, welcome. We have over here a Mishnah that talks about something totally tangential to Har Sinai and totally tangential actually to Shabbos itself, that a woman, if she is piletes zera for 3 days, it's a problem. After that, it's no longer a problem anymore. And dafka this we're worried about because we're worried about Kalas Reish. Okay, so now let's get to the Gemara that we want to talk about. The Gemara in Daf Pei Zayin, amongst the many, many, many famous Gemaras, I would say that for pure shock value, nothing ever competes to the Gemara I'm going to read to you now. If you have a look on Daf Pei Zayin Amud Aleph, let's read this inside. Meisvei, it is 6 lines down. So for those of you that just joined us, we mentioned about 10 minutes ago the machlokas between Rabbi Yosi and the Chachamim. Rabbi Yosi says Har Sinai was on the, Seres HaDibros was on the 7th day of the month, and the Chachamim say it was on the 6th day of the month. So the Gemara goes back and forth, questions on both sides. But before we begin, L'chaim, thank you, Reb Dave. So, Meisvei, Yikidashtem Hayoim Umacha. This is the 10th pasuk in Parak Yotes. For those of you that need reminding, Yisro, Parak Yotes is the Parak of Har Sinai, of Matan Torah over here. So pasuk Yud, I'm reading from the side from the Psukim, the Gai Kadosh, Eila Devarim Ashidabe El Bnei Yisrael, and there Vayem Hashem Moshe, Leich Elam, Vikidashtem Hayom Umacha, Vikipsu Simleisam. So just want to tell you, so that you don't get confused instantly, there's 2 psukim, one after the other. In Pasuk Yud, Hashem says to Moshe, the Jewish people need 2 days of separation, male and female. I just gave a share, which I'm happy to forward to anyone, to women, about the women, the female dimension to Har Sinai. And I spoke about how at Har Sinai, unlike Pesach, where we were in our Jewish home when we left Egypt, unlike Sukkot, where in our Jewish home celebrating Sukkot, at Sinai, it was segregation of the genders. The women got the Torah first, because same with the Beis Yaakov. The men got the Torah second. That was a segregation that was there. And I spoke about it, the women's dimension. Anyone, I'm happy to forward you the share from my YouTube channel. That's not today's share. What today's share is just the segregation itself was connected to the laws of Tumah, and the Perisha had to be 2 days. Hayom, meaning the remainder of today, Umacha. So it's the remainder of today, Umacha, and tomorrow. That's what Hashem says. What's confusing is that in Pasuk Tesvav, a few psukim later, the Kodesh Baruch Hu is going to say that Pasuk we've already mentioned, V'yu l'shleishas yamim, which our Mishnah tells us is not the rule for Har Sinai, but rather is the rule for everything except for Har Sinai. It's extremely, extremely confusing. Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, in general, so to speak, you need 3 days of separation for the carry not to be active. You need 3 days. What exactly is 3 days? So the Gemara on Peivav brings down a 3-way machlokes, what exactly 3 days means in practice. I've confused you already with way too much information, but the bottom line is that the Torah says, Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, they only need Hayom Umacha. They need today and tomorrow. So according to Rabbi Yossi, simple calculation, Rabbi Yossi holds that this was all happening on the Wednesday. This is the mathematics has already been introduced. So this is the Wednesday after Klal Yisrael came to Har Sinai on the first day. This is now the 4th day, which we say is a Wednesday. So Hayom, the rest of Wednesday, Umacha, which is Thursday, that's what you need for the separation for the Torah. So when was the Torah given? On Friday. According to your Cheshbon, it's supposed to be given on a Friday. Now, according to the Chachamim, it's not a problem because they're starting off with using a different Cheshbon, which we're not going to talk about now, the Chachamim now. But according to Rabbi Yossi, the Torah would have had to be given on a Friday. But you say, and we all say that Torah was given on Shabbos. So what are you going to do? There's a day missing. So the Gemara says, Amalacha Rabbi Yossi. If Rabbi Yossi was sitting in the Bet Midrash, he would say to you, this is not a problem. Yaim Echad Haisif Moshe Midaitai. This, my dear friends, is one of the craziest lines in all of Shas ever. One of the most bizarre moments in history that Hashem says, I'm going to give the Torah on Friday, and Moshe Rabbeinu says, no. I, Moshe Rabbeinu, am going to reschedule for Shabbos. This is after my introduction a few minutes ago, that there's 3 things you need to know to be in Kiruv. How to prove that God exists, how to prove Har Sinai, and how to prove that the rabbis took Har Sinai till the Asad Lavo. Rabbinic Judaism, those are the 3 tenets corresponding to Shema Yisrael Hashem, and Elokeinu, and Hashem Echad, which was a discussion that we've had at other times. Those are the 3 cardinal things that you have to prove. If you got that, you're not an atheist. Well, if that you've got Judaism, everything. You're firm, you're Haredi, you've got, if you buy into those 3 principles, which is Shabbos of Bereshis, Shabbos of Har Sinai, and then Shabbos of Asad Lavai, which is connected with Rabbinic Judaism, you've got everything. That's all you need to know. You're good to go. And suddenly we find out that this crucial centerpiece, on which everything spins around, which everyone says is the most important event in history by far, and as the Kuzari says, every time you mention Yetzias Mitzrayim, it's a code name for Yetzias Mitzrayim that took us to Har Sinai, as the Kuzari says. So Yetzias Mitzrayim, Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim is referring to Har Sinai as well. It's a package deal. We left so that we should get the Torah. So there could be a moment in history where Kodesh Baruch Hu reveals everything. There could be a moment in history where Klal Yisrael, as we mentioned in our opening moments, are back in Garden of Eden, back in the place of Adam and Chava before the Chet, where they're shown the answers and the explanations to everything. That world of clarity, that world of Har Sinai, where all the sick were cured, of Anochi, Ana Nafshi Yavis, Nafshi Ksivas Yavis. I'm giving my essence over to you. That Yom Chasanasa, that great wedding day. Moshe Rabbeinu says, I'm rescheduling. I'm pushing up the day. Oh, chutzpah. I shouldn't say that to my Moshe Rabbeinu. Can't even say that for the purpose of being dramatic. But this is the most dramatic line anywhere. You won't find anything like this. Amlech Rav Yesi Yom Echad Haisiv Moshe Midaita. And then he brings down the whole brisa. The whole brisa is just insane. The Tanya. Gimel Devarim Asa Moshe Midaita. V'hitzim LaKadosh Baruch Hu Imai. Three things Hashem Moshe Rabbeinu did with his own das. I mean, focusing Moshe Rabbeinu's own das. Three things he did. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu Hiskim was saying, okay, so what you want to do, fine. Number one is Haisif Yim Echa Midaitai, we just mentioned that. Number two, Pirish Mina Isha is also controversial. You all know Parshas Shlach Lecha, Parshas, the end of Ba'alei, the story with Miriam, and Miriam gets harassed because she says, what does he think he's doing? Aaron HaKayan, everyone's getting into trouble for this. This is a crazy story that Moshe Rabbeinu is Pirish from his wife, especially if you say that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't have daughters, which is mamish, at first glance, he's going against halacha, and he says, no, I'm separating from my wife. And then you want controversial? How about this? The most important object in history, by far, that goes into the Chodesh Kodashim, that is the most incredible thing that we can have down here, is something that was written up there. Moshe Rabbeinu breaks it. So then the Gemara brings down the drushes. Let's go through this very quickly. Just a quick overview. I'm assuming that everyone that's listening at some point has learned these Haggadahs. My Darish, what was Moshe Rabbeinu's drasha? Hayom umacha, Hayom, today, umacha, and tomorrow. Remember, we said Hayom is Wednesday, umacha is Thursday. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, Hayom kamacha. I'm darshaning the pasuk. It's Pashup Pshat is that the pasuk had just been written down that day. Moshe Rabbeinu wrote, I don't know, depends which narrative you go with, but let's go with Rashi. We'll mention this maybe on if we get a chance, then we'll get there. But Moshe Rabbeinu would have just written down from Bereshis till wherever he was holding in Parshas Yisro. So he writes something down and he immediately darshans it. Hayom kamacha. Malamacha leila imai. Just like tomorrow comes with the night beforehand. Afayom leila imai, so Wednesday doesn't count, because Wednesday we already lost the night. Remember, Moshe Rabbeinu was getting this commandment on Wednesday morning. So what we call Tuesday night, which is the beginning of Wednesday, that's out. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, no, so it's got to be just like Thursday has the night before. You have to have another day with the night before. So that's Friday. V'layla da'idna nafka. We already lost today. Yeah, so Reb Nati is getting straight to the point. This is exactly where this whole shir is going. Hold on to that thought. Shmamina treyemi lebar me'ayidna. So there's got to be two separate days. So you have this bizarre scenario where Moshe Rabbeinu does a drasha. A drasha is something he has just written, and he is coming out and learning lahalacha against what God is telling him to do. And just to make it more confusing, look at the top tesis. Hayom kamacha ein zeh drasha gemara. It's not even a proper drasha. Elamash with the hayom mamash. Di lav hachi ein zeh midaito. This is probably what Nati was asking. Okay, so what is going on over here? Okay, it can't be. It's Moshe Rabbeinu's decision, because Tesis points out you're not really darshing the pasuk. The pasuk is very clear. Hayom means today. You can't say mean like today is lacking a night. Excuse me, like tomorrow is lacking a night, and today is lacking a night. So it can't mean today. The Torah says today. So what kind of a drasha is this? Definitely does not fit in with the normal norms of how we do drashas, says Tosfos. So hold on to that. So Moshe Rabbeinu is making what seems to be, Tosfos is a spurious drasha to make the most craziest nafkamina in history of pushing off the most important day in history by a day. Let's just do the other two cases. Upirish Mina Isha, my Darish, Nasa Kavachaimes. Until now, we did a regular drasha. He darshened up Teresh Valpeh, Teresh Viksav. He did a drasha on Teresh Viksav. And then we now have a Kavachaimer, another nice thing, Ba'atzmai. Ama Yisrael Shlei Dibra Shina Imahem Elisha Achas, Bekavdem Zman, Klal Yisrael Har Sinai. Only one moment in history. How long did Har Sinai did it take for Hashem to say Anechin Lo Yeh? A couple of minutes. Without trying to be tzafleg and why did we get tzaras about when questioning Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, so this is going to be a lot of questions over here. It's okay to be tzafleg and Reb David. But let's hold on to this. Okay, I don't want to lose this flow over here. The Kabbalim Zman, Amar Torah, V'yinachenu Yom Shlishi. So I'll take you. No one can be together. Ani shebekol shah v'shah shchina medaberes imo. So any moment Hashem can speak to me. Hel peh adababi. Be'eni kaveli zman. I don't know when it's going to be. Alachas kam v'kama. I have to be separated from my wife. So Hashem says, Klal Yisrael have to be separated. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, okay, I'm going to separate the whole time. So we have a kavachaymer in something that Hashem has just said. And once again, Tosfos points out, this is the second Tosfos. My kam midaita deraisu the kavachaymer nitl lidreish. If it's a kavachaymer, the kavachaymer means the pasuk is saying it. He says, no, it's not a real kavachaymer. The shiny house Mishma says a dibros. How can you compare you, any moment Hashem may speak to you, to Maimid Harsina? Maimid Harsina could have its own category. So your kavachaymer is flawed, Tosfos points out. We're not doing very well over here. We already have a bad drasha, says Tosfos, and a bad kavachaymer. And Moshe Rabbeinu is doing these shocking things, that he's postponing the date of the most important day in history, and he's separating from his wife, which is ducher against halacha. It's about to get worse. Well, first of all, he points out Kosh Baruch is maskim. Lech emelahem, shvu lechem, lalechem. Go back to your tents. You Moshe Rabbeinu, you stay with me. Meaning, you don't go back to your tent. You don't go back to your Rebbetzin. Putzipara has to be on her own. This armor pel pel dababoy, whatever. That's another drasha. Thirdly, Shavuos haluchos. My darish, Ama, Uma Pesach shu echem mitareg mitzvos amar tzeiru v'kol beinechol yochol boy. If Pesach, there, a person who has been ostracized, a ben nechor, he's not allowed to have korban Pesach. Hatera kuloi b'Yisrael mumrim alachas kam v'kama klal Yisrael. You're all a bunch of mumrim, a bunch of Eivdei Avodah. How much the more so you don't deserve to have the luchais. Here, Tosfos doesn't even bother. He's given up, saying how rochik this drasha is. Minom the hiskel kosh baruch hayadei shenem asheshi barata shkoyach for breaking the Torah, as is well known. This is very, very bizarre, this whole drasha, how he figures out how to break the luchais. What on earth is going on over here? This is very, very shocking, and it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. But let's just understand, we have three massive decisions of Moshe Rabbeinu. Each one we will notice right now are connected to the Barim, where Moshe Rabbeinu seems to be driven with an agenda of Kedusha. We're going to point this out in a moment, that the breaking of the luchos, what are we talking about? The Klal Yisrael Mumrim, how many people died at the end? 30,000? You can do the math. There's 600,000, of which 30,000 died. 600,000 of just men from 20 to 60, 30,000, it's less than half a percentage. In statistics, it's nothing. And the whole thing, as we know, was driven by the Erev Ra. And yet Moshe Rabbeinu says, finish with Klal Yisrael. Finish with Klal Yisrael, the Kavachaymer from korban Pesach. It's such a weird thing. So what is going on over here? So I want to say something huge. I've seen similar ideas. After I came up with this big idea, I saw in 60 Chaim, Moadim Gimel, of a Friedlander, Daf Pei Gimel, he has a similar approach, but not exactly the way I'm saying it. So I'm saying it my way, if that's okay, because I like my way. And I think it's very, very important message I'm about to give over. But my idea, what I want to share with you, is based on the writings of Rabbi Eliezer Moshe Horowitz. So very often on the side of the Gemara, you see the Haggas of the Re'aim Horowitz. The Re'aim Horowitz, he was the Rav in Pensk during the 19th century, and he was the Gaon Atzon. The Chaznish said about him that he would have been a Gaon Atzon in the period of the Ramah. Reb Chaim Soloveitch, Reb Chaim used to praise his writings. He was a Gaon Atzon, and we have his Haggas. That's basically how we know. The Re'aim Horowitz fixes things for us. He's a little bit like a Rashash type of person. In the Vilna Shas, his comments are mentioned over here. He lived from 18, I wrote this down because I knew I want to say something big from him, from 1817 to 1890. Okay, now he comes along and says something beautiful to connect these three things. And I'm going to just take what he's saying and give it an extra layer of Oimek. He said, let's take this one by one. He says, each one of these three cases has something in common. They all, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu happens to have, so to speak, the behind the scenes inside scoop of Hashem's Yediyah, of what Hashem knows is going to happen. And then you have downstairs over here, what Moshe Rabbeinu figures out on his own. Allow me to explain. The halacha is that you're so separate from your wife for 3 days if you don't want the keri that comes out of her to be metame her or to be metame others. So that is the halacha. How do you know? It's a Mishnah right here. We just learned this Mishnah together. Shkayach. But Kosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu a different story. He says, Hayoim umacha. No, we only need 2 days. What's going on over here? Hashem is telling Moshe Rabbeinu, I know for a fact that it's not going to be a problem. I'm God. I know what's going to be in the future. No woman is going to be Peleta Shechvazera. It's not happening. So you don't have to worry about the Kalos Rosh of maybe it's going to come out. Hashem says, here at Har Sinai, we just need today and tomorrow and Zehu. So Moshe Rabbeinu comes along and says, wait a second. There's a Mishnah in Shabbos, which is the halacha, is how we paskin, that you need 3 days. What does 3 days mean? It's the three-way machlokes Tanoim. As I mentioned, the Torah itself will say in a few lines, it's 3 days. I have the Gemara in front of me. I'm going to darshan it and come out with my spurious drasha. That's what I'm going to do. So that is the case number one. That Moshe Rabbeinu darshan something when a Kosh Baruch says, I know that the facts are not relevant to the drasha. That's what's happening over here. Next phase, same thing. Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, the halacha, I'm telling you that you should live with your wife. And that's the halacha. And especially if you say that he still needed to have a daughter. Moshe Rabbeinu says, no, God, I'm going to make my spurious kol v'chayme, and I'm going to separate from my wife because I need to be ready for you at any given moment. And the end, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, and you stay with me. He's masking. So once again, Hashem says, I know for a fact that it's not going to be a problem. You and Tzipora are going to be fine. It's never going to be a situation where I need you and you're going to be tamei. I, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, know with my yediyah that it's not going to be an issue. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you may have that yediyah, but I have to paskin based on my kal v'chomer. Third thing is, this over here was a big chiddush for me because that's not normally we learn. But the Re'aim Horowitz says, because Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, go down and bring the luchos rishonos. Hashem tells him, give him the luchos. What's going on? Chet Egal, greatest sin of all time, together with the Chet of Adam and Chava. Because Baruch Hu is saying to Moshe Rabbeinu, I know that Klal Yisrael are going to create this movement in the future called the Tshuva movement, and they're going to fix everything. They're going to be shaykh to these luchos. Moshe Rabbeinu says, I can't. I'm going to make myself the drasha. I'm going to learn from Pesach, from Korban Pesach, that no, I have to break these luchos. So each of these three cases points out the Re'aim Horowitz. You have something massive where HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows the facts because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is God. And Moshe Rabbeinu says, no, I'm going to use the Mahalchim of Torah Shabbal Peh to come out with a different conclusion. So I want to say the following thing. First of all, I just wanted to add something beautiful in 10 seconds. The third one I just mentioned, which is the Shviras Haluchos, is insane, right? You think about it. You come with the Luchos Vishenis. We can't. I'm not going to go through it now. Luchos Vishenis was a totally different type of Luchos than the Luchos Shneas. The Luchos Vishenis was Krish Baruch Hu wrote it himself. Second was written by Moshe Rabbeinu. It's a whole different level. I just wanted to point out is that I have my trusted Chumash over here. What's the last three words of the Torah? The last three words of the Torah. Okay, this is Simchas Torah. L'chol hayad chazaka, l'chol hamer hagadol, asher asa Moshe le'enei kol Yisrael. Chazak, chazak, v'nischay. What's the enei kol Yisrael? Rashi says, shenasa libai, his heart was elevated, lishbar haluches leineim, shenema, he brings down, v'ashabrein leinechem, parshas v'eschanam, v'eskima das HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'daiti shenema, asher shibarti, yeshekreach sheshibarta. Famous, famous, famous Rashi, quoting the famous psukim, the last Rashi in Chumash, on the last three words of Chumash, ends off, climax is Moshe Rabbeinu did the greatest thing ever. He broke the luchos. And it's interesting because in a way, the end of the Torah now connects to the beginning of the Torah, because the first word in the Torah is Bereshis, right? Leina Kol Yisrael, Bereshis. So what does Rashi say there? Bishvil Yisrael shenikra Bereshis. So Klal Yisrael is the beginning of the Torah, and Klal Yisrael is the end of the Torah. And Moshe Rabbeinu connects them and says, I'm making sure that they prevail by breaking the luchos. The greatest gift that he gave us, that Klal Yisrael can come along and they can succeed. And Hashem says, you don't need to do this. I know for a fact that Klal Yisrael can do tshuva without the breaking of the luchos. This is crazy stuff over here. So here comes my big var. I just realized I'm running out of time. Kedarki b'Kodesh, and it's Rosh Chodesh, and I want to be in time for davening Shacharis. But it's so incredible what's going on over here. First of all, let's start off with what we learned in kindergarten. First of all, let's have another shlook. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. Bereshis, base ratius. Svar Makdeshim bring down, because Baruch created the world with a parallel reality. One is called Yediyah, and one is called Bechira. Yediyah and Bechira, oh my gosh, every good NCS, my rabbi, has had a Yediyah Bechira session over pizza in a JSU club. Bechira and Yediyah. The greatest puzzle, which you and I know secretly is not a puzzle at all. Hashem created a double reality, his reality and our reality. We live with Bechira. We have to get up and make choices. From the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep, we make choices. And that's how we earn our schar. And that's how we get our olam haba. And that's how we achieve greatness. Man is a function of his Bechira, of his choices. That is the definition of man. That's why it's always such a big deal when Hashem took away the Bechira of Paro. We are the people that are Beicher, and we're Beicher in Toiv v'Loi Bara. That is the essential challenge of humanity. Because Baruch Hu is the idea. How did the two work? Don't even try. The way that they teach us in yeshivas, when the Rambam says it's a contradiction, he's not saying it's a contradiction. He's saying because Baruch Hu created this double reality. And just like you and I can't live in a double reality. So we know in hindsight that Kadosh Baruch Hu knows everything. We see Hashgacha Pratis in every small thing. In Tefillah, we are recognizing that Kadosh Baruch Hu is fully in control of when I lift my finger or put my left finger down. Everything is a Kadosh Baruch Hu. So that is Hashem's idea. But in practice, we live a life of Bechira. So why is it that way? Because Kadosh Baruch Hu wants man through his Bechira to become godlike. This is Derech Hashem 101, that by our Bechira, our neshama becomes ikri, and our guf becomes tafel to our neshama, and therefore we can have a relation with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Therefore we can marry God on Har Sinai, because if we are beicha b'toiv, mechazik the neshama, and there's 613 chalakim to the neshama corresponding to 613 connections to the guf, corresponding to 613 mitzvahs, whatever you were taught, whatever what you teach others, the bottom line is that Bechira is everything about how humanity becomes who they are, and how ultimately Klal Yisrael becomes Ki'ish Echad B'Lev Echad, so that the neshama is Iker and the guf is Tafel, and they can have a relation with the Kadosh Baruch Hu like a twig, a little twig, to the infinite tree, to the Eitz Chaim. Okay, so that is something that we all know. We live through our Bechira, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu is simultaneously, he sees everything. Now, what happened over here? What's the Re'im Horowitz saying? I think I'm adding a lot to what he's saying. He's saying all these three examples. Moshe Rabbeinu, what he did is that Moshe Rabbeinu says the following thing. I know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows everything. I know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but I am obligated to use my Bechira, and the essential nature of Bechira is Torah Shabbal Peh. So Yediyah corresponds to Torah Shviksav, is Torah Min HaShemayim, is Himmeldik, but Torah is down here. Torah, I'm bringing Torah from Shemayim down on earth. And in earth, we have to live our lives based on the rules that we got at Har Sinai of how to navigate Torah Shabbal Peh. It's the Beis HaMedrash. It's the world of the Beis HaMedrash. And there, the world of the Beis HaMedrash is exactly the famous Gemara in Bab Metzia and Nun Tes for Yudafa Yomi Jews. You just did it, where Rabbi Eliezer says, let there be a baskol from heaven that says, my tanur, remember the sugya of the tanur of Achnai, right? The tanur of Achnai. So Eliezer is fighting all the rabbis, and Rabbi Yeshua says, Loi b'shamayim he, it's down here. And who's right? We pass like Rabbi Yeshua. And what happens when Reb Nosson meets Eliyahu Navi? What's Hashem doing in Shemayim? He's smiling, right? He's smiling and says, Nitzchuni bani, my children have vanquished me. They are victorious of you. So you're smiling, nachas from the kinder. No, it's much deeper than that. Why is he smiling? Because Baruch is saying, I succeeded in everything I wanted. I, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, do not want a nation of slaves, a nation of servants. I want a nation that is going to, through their own Yegia and through their own Amelis, bring out their own essential personalities, using the Kalim of how to learn Torah Shabbal Peh, to come up with Torah, and that's how they become my partners. Har Sinai was not a king taking a servant. It was husband and wife. A husband and wife are equals. A husband and wife are, the third month is Gemini, the twins. Twins are equal. Matan Torah is at a certain level, obviously. We're equal. Hashem runs his world through his Yediyah, and we run through a world through the Amelis of Torah Shabbal Peh, the Beis HaMedrash. What was so incredible at this moment in history is that Moshe Rabbeinu made a decision that was the clincher, that made HaKadosh Baruch Hu smile, that made HaKadosh Baruch Hu happy, or immediately HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm agreeing with Moshe Rabbeinu. That Moshe Rabbeinu says, at this moment now, at this crucial moment, Moshe Rabbeinu says, I'm not going to be the greatest Navi of all time. I'm going to be Moshe Rabbeinu. This is the Moshe Rabbeinu of the Beis HaMedrash, not the Moshe Rabbeinu of Nevuah, connected to the higher world of Yediyah. This is the Moshe Rabbeinu of Droshes and of Kal V'chaimes and all the things that come with it. I have to point out, because I'm just running out of time, but I have over here the Marmakinis of the Maharal in Tiferes, Perek of Zion, where he explains that the droshes over here, this thing that was bothering Reb Nati, and I think was also bothering Reb David Shulman beforehand, is that the world of Yediyah, the world of Torah Shebiksav, which belongs to Shemayim, and the world of Bechira, which is the world of Torah Shabbal Peh, down here, which is the world of the Beis HaMidrash. So the Maharal in Perek of Zion of Tiferes explains how that Moshe Rabbeinu, using the Kalim of Torah Shabbal Peh, it's actually be'etzem, ba'aimek, he's creating Torah that is 100% legit. I have the square brackets over here from the famous Ritva, the Ritva that I learned in Yeshiva when I was 18, on the word asmachta. He says, don't be like das minus, that think that asmachta is just kind of a simon. No. The asmachta says that ultimately, it's all from the pasuk itself. It's so to speak, it's a Derabanan Dika Torah Shebiksav that comes from the Amelus of the Beis HaMedrash. So the Maharal is marked to explain that these three droshes of Moshe Rabbeinu are much higher. It's Moshe Rabbeinu, and everything to do with Moshe Rabbeinu is always by definition was higher. But my point today is that this higher Moshe Rabbeinu's drushes, whatever they mean, comes from his das as a human being created, if I may say so, that Moshe Rabbeinu came from a woman, physical on earth, to be able to, at that crucial moment from the world of the Bet Midrash, to come out with the mahalchim of the Bet Midrash, to come out with drushes, just like Rabbi Yeshua would do when he rejected the Baskal and said, no, Torah lo b'shamayim, it's now down here. And this is exactly what Akash Baruch Hu wanted. Akash Baruch Hu wanted a partner. So you have something incredible going on over here. That let's go through the three things once again. I think it also corresponds to whenever you have three things. So three is very often man, right? Space and time, right? Olam Shana Nefesh, as the Sefer Yetzirah says. So you have in time, Moshe Rabbeinu adds a day, and in space, Moshe Rabbeinu gives more kedusha to Klal Yisrael by breaking the luchos, and personally, he separates from a woman. But what is mattering over here is each one of these three things is that he is going through the mahalchim of Torah Sheba'al Peh, the world of the Bet Midrash, to say that at this moment now, I'm not interested in the world of Yediyah. So let's go through each one. In Yediyah, you, God, say, going to be no woman that's Polet Zera. But what can I tell you? I work with the world of drushes. HaKadosh Baruch, I'm never going to have a problem with my wife being tamei, but what am I going to do? I have to worry about suffix at any moment that you're going to call me, so I have to make gedarim. And the third one is that the Klal is going to achieve. I don't know that. I just know that now I don't see how this is going to work. There has to be a different form of luchos. Each one is Moshe Rabbeinu using his das as Moshe Rabbeinu, not Moshe the Navi. Moshe Rabbeinu, the Moshe the Bet Midrash, he's using his das of the Mahalchim of Torah Sheba'al Peh down here. And it's interesting, and I mentioned this earlier, all of them involve Gedarim and Kedusha. They're all ultimately the mysterious nefesh of a man to get close to Hashem. Because what do we say? This whole thing about a woman being Polet Zera. What's born Polet? So Tesa says, because Kabbalah Satira has to be Bereses Bezeah, and there's a suffix that maybe a woman will be Moitzi Zera because she had relations with her husband 3 days ago, and that's Roy Liklite. And on that level, she may have a little teeny weeny disconnection from what Tesa calls Kavod, Kalas Reish. I don't know what Kalas Reish we're talking about 3 days ago, where Har Sinai, 3 days she was with her husband. But Moshe Rabbeinu says, Har Sinai, I'm reading the rules through my Koyach Hadrasha, all for the extreme kedusha I want for this event, the extreme heaviness, the Aish, and the Kodesh Abrakim has to come with Klal Yisrael being on the maximum Kavod Rosh. Therefore, he makes this drasha. Similarly with myself, I am bringing Hashem's Torah down to this world. I have to be on a different level of kedusha. I have to be Moiseh Nefesh, to be not with a normal home situation. And the Shviras Halucha is Hashem Yirachim. Moshe Rabbeinu makes that cheshbon for the kedusha of Klal Yisrael, and we see at the end that Kadosh Baruch Hu is masking Yasher Kayach. Last words of the Torah, Noyet Sefer. This connects us to Bereshis. One more thing I want to show you. Do you remember learning this famous question? Every home on Shavuos, the kid comes along and asks the question. So wait a second, it's the Magen Avram's question. Magen Avram asked this question formally. They call it the Magen Avram's question, but it's everyone's question. He says, but wait a second, when do we keep the holy day of Shavuos? On the 6th day, right? Go check your calendar. Machras HaShabbos, the day after Shavuos, we keep it after Sfiras Ha'om is over, 49 days. The 50th day is when we keep Shabbos. Magen Avram says, La halacha, who do we pass like? Rav Yesi or the Chachamim? So he shows it's Rav Yesi, because in Yeridea, we keep 6 einos, whatever, that's Rav Yesi Shita. So we pass like Rav Yesi. Well, that Rav Yesi's narrative, the Torah is given the 7th. Shavuos should be on the 7th. This whole thing that we always say that we go back to that moment in time when it happened, then we receive the Torah once again. Wait a second, we receive the Torah on the 7th, says the Magen Avram. So why are we celebrating the 6th? We're perpetuating that this whole thing of Har Sinai is doesn't make sense. We're Makabal the Torah on the wrong day, in a place that we don't know where it was. What's going on over here? So the Magen Avraham brings from the Marami Pano. This is a remiss to Yom Tashini Legolius, which fits in with beautiful everything I'm saying. Because Yom Tashini Legolius is Spitz Teresh Balpeh. It's Spitz based in Medrash, especially on Shavuos, where there's no suffix. There's not even a suffix in Shavuos, because we always know when Shavuos is, because it's always the day after Sfiras Omer. Doesn't make any difference. So the Marami Pana says it's a show of force, of the power of Teresh Balpeh, of the Chachamim, because only in Chutz La'aretz, based on Chazal, do they keep the real day. That's not what I want to say. I want to say the Maharal's famous answer, and Maharal, and it's Beis Levi also has in his similar language. Maharal says that we celebrate when Hashem gave the Torah, but the next day was when we received the Torah. It's two separate things. So there's Zman Matan Torah saying is what we're going to be saying in davening next week. Zman Matan Torah saying, Zman Kabbalah's Torah saying we needed an extra day. The Kosh Baruch says that's fine. I'm masking to you because I understand that I need a partner, and we work on two different levels. I'm in the world of Yediyah, you're in the world of Bechira, and you need an extra day. It comes through the Mahalchim, the Beis Midrash, through your Bechira. Fantastic. Okay? Kosh Baruch says, I have a partner, I have a zivug. It's, we're sure, you are my sister, you are my twin. I like what you're doing. But we celebrate. The celebration is when Hashem gave the Torah. The Torah was ready to be given already on the 6th. It's Man Matan Torah saying it. Okay, I want to finish off. There's other things I wanted to connect it to, but I'm just running out of time, and you guys need to get your sleep. I want to point out two more things. First of all, this avodah that we do, you and I, what is our challenge in life? To be part of the Beis Midrash. That's it. In my book, right? Those of you who do not have it, I happen to know for a fact that that Nati Stern has enjoyed it. If you remember, that Rabbi Hartman brings down that Moshe told him, learn from everyone, but then say v'sein chalkeinu b'seiresecha. Find your own chelik in Torah. This is what makes you great. Is your chelik in the Beis Midrash. You can never, ever, ever be disconnected from the walls of the Beis Midrash, no matter how much souls you're saving. You always have to be anchored in the Beis Midrash. So how do we celebrate this? Watch this. What's the first need that man has in the Shemona Esrei? Atachanein la'adam das, Moshe midaitai. Umulamed ve'esh v'chenein me'yitcha. Our das should be your ratzon. So my das, meaning my bechira, how I learn up the sugyas, should be me'itcha, ultimately should bring me closer to you. So my das comes from me. But that's what you want. You want man, through the world of his das, to be able to get to what Kodesh Baruch Hu's ratzon is, his pattus to Kodesh Baruch Hu. So this is the way it's supposed to be. Nasa v'nishma, that comes after the bris, after according to the Ramban, after we makabel the Torah. So then we say to Kodesh Baruch Hu, we're ready to, through our own das, to nishma, but everything has to be for you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, in conclusion, my Rebbe, Ramesh Shapiro, used to always say the following thing. You've heard this from me, and I don't mind saying this every single year. He says, there's a Rosh Hashanah for the whole world. There's a Rosh Hashanah for B'nai Torah. The Rosh Hashanah for B'nai Torah is Shavuos. Honestly, most of the world doesn't know what Shavuos is all about. I'm talking about in our own backyard. They think it's cheesecake. They know there's flowers. They don't really get it. What is the essential nature? Because it's very intimate. It's not like the normal story of the Jewish people, which is connected to the Jewish home, which is Pesach and Sukkot. It's all about the Yiddish home. This is very, very different. Men, and my wife will barely see me on Shavuos. And when she does during the day, I'm crabby because I haven't had enough hours sleep. It's the Shavuos, even though it's Chatzin Lachem, at the end of the day, it's a time where we connect to higher things. Moshe used to say it's a good time to learn a little bit of Pnimius HaTorah. Well, for reasons not for now. But the point is that you must ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu on Shavuos, V'sein Chalkeinu b'Seiresecha. I want to be like Moshe Rabbeinu. I want to have my chelik in Torah. I want to be at the heartbeat of the Jewish people, to be a partner in a place beyond time and beyond space. That's why the secular Israeli kind of understand what on earth is the Bet Midrash all about. Unless you've tasted the dvash of Torah, you can't possibly understand why my brothers who are fighting for me at this moment now in Gaza and in the north, they're fighting for me. And I know that my brothers in the Bet Midrash are the secret of all the successes, all the nisim and the flaws that we're seeing, together with all the nisim and the flaws, the craziness that's going on. Israel cannot do anything right. Everything is so shaloi keder chateva that's going on. On the one hand, so many nisim. On the other hand, so many nisim l'ra. So many terrible things have happened. And we know that the secret is the Bet Midrash. We know the secret is this secret thing called the generator of all of the universe. Without 1 second of Torah, the world goes back to Torah v'vohu. And Moshe Rabbeinu says, through the power of Moshe Rabbeinu, the Bet Midrash, will even add a day. I'll break the luchos. I'll separate from my wife. That's the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu said. That's the way I want it. And it's Chuni Bonai with the big smile. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Kiviyachol, said, this is the way the world is supposed to be. We must, this Shavuos, ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's more than in previous years, because Torah is so under attack here in this country. The covet of Torah is plummeted in the whole world. And again, I have infinite acharsatov to the soldiers, but at the end of the day, it's the Torah that protects us. There's just the outer shelves of hishtadlus. There's the hishtadlus. We have to do hishtadlus. Just like the doctors don't heal us, just like our MBA does not give us money, the soldiers do not protect the Jewish people. It's the Bet Midrash. It's the Torah Shabbat Peh. And it's so important that this Shavuos, for us, the B'nai Torah, the B'nai Baruch Hu, give us our chelik in Torah. Give us so that through our Bechira, we can be Mechadish and bring out Hashem's Ratzon here in this world. So then, and only then, we can go to the stage 3 from Shabbos of Har Sinai to the Shabbos of L'Asad Lavai, of the Shabbos that Mashiach is going to bring. We should all be Zeicha, we have Yameinu. Next week, obviously, there's no share. So wish we all a good Yom Tov and Atzlach Rabba, and we should all be Zeicha to mamash feel the Mesikas of Torah and the Torah of the Bet Midrash, and bring it into our lives and into this whole world, to protect our holy soldiers and to protect all of Klal Yisrael and all the campuses and everywhere, until eventually Mashiach is going to take us out of this mud and bring us back to the way that it's supposed to be. Thank you so much for listening, and a good Yom Tov and a good Shabbos to all. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you.